heart's pounding, but it's not in a bad way.
I'm looking for a partner that brings me peace, who helps mellow me out and allows me to be comfortable.
No matter what, you fight for each other.
If you lie to me, you're done.
I tend to pick people that don't fit me and try to mold myself into a person for them.
Welcome to Love is Blind.
When I watched all the trailers they put out for the upcoming season of Love is Blind, I couldn't help but notice, like somewhere between the lines, I could see these red flags.
8,000 walking red flags.
Or rather calling them like myths that keep us single. Stuff that we keep telling ourselves about, like, oh my God, I'm never gonna settle, or I'm gonna completely change myself in order to please the other person. And so many myths that basically we feel so entitled to feeling and believing and saying, but actually they keep us single. And I talk from experience. Of course, as always. So before the actual season 5 arrives, let's get into these kind of love myths that are on those couple of trailers and the Meet That Cast announcement. The biggest one that stood out for me is the myth about the spark. Because a lot of times when we meet people, we feel like, oh my God, they're igniting something in me. I feel this chemistry, I feel this heat. I feel like, oh my God, I can't stay away from them. I just want to hear from them constantly, which at face value sounds great.
I'm always gonna think about you for the rest of my life.
But what happens when you're meeting somebody who ignites a lot of spark and chemistry in you that is just like turns your world upside down, as good as that feels, what they're actually igniting is something very familiar, a very old wound. I'm sure if you follow my channel and you follow all the self-help stuff on YouTube, I'm sure the algorithm recommends to you a guy called Lewis. He has this channel called School of Greatness, and I watch his stuff all the time. But there was this one interview where he did with his partner, Martha, this Mexican actress, and they have a beautiful conversation about their past mistakes in previous relationships and how they found each other. And what struck me about that conversation is how chill and peaceful the energy between them was. It wasn't this crazy hot chemistry like they're gonna tear each other's clothes off, but you can feel they have a certain understanding and there's a depth between them, a certain calm, which I loved. So for this week's lip sync portion, I'm playing both of them. I'm reenacting parts of that conversation that kind of fits this love myths and what it's like to overcome those love myths. So here we go.
You know that feeling that when you meet somebody, people say, oh, it felt like family to me. Why did it feel like family?
Well, some family could be great, another family might make you, yeah.
Exactly. So like that's why the question is really important. What part of that made you feel like family?
Hey y'all, so as promised before, now that my shows are done, well, the first run, the premiere of it, which went fabulous by the way, in this show called All About Me and My Mother, where I played myself, my mother, and my father, by the way. I couldn't have asked for a better premiere. So now things gonna be a little bit more calm and I can focus more on YouTube, and I'm gonna play the show again once a month starting November at a theater here in Amsterdam called Amstel. So if you're around, gonna link that below. And by the way, if you notice, I'm wearing a new wig. I mean hair. This is my real hair. No girl. I'm trying this new boy wig, which I love. But if you want me to go back to the blonde one, which is, she's sitting right there, let me know and I'll wear it for the season 5 premiere. But anyway, to go back to the subject of this video and these love myths that not only keep us single, but also keep us distracted because there's a lot of fire in them. The first one is that spark and the chemistry, right? And that's big in all these shows that like Love is Blind that we love watching because people are meeting for the first time, so the chemistry is undeniable. That's why we love watching it. But this chemistry, most of the time what it has to do with is what your inner child is deprived of and didn't get.
I'll just be honest with you. I have a track record of crappy relationships and I just haven't found the right person. My mom says like, maybe you're not meant to be in a relationship. Yeah.
So basically it has everything to do with the unresolved childhood trauma and what that inner child is still waiting for you to resolve. And until you resolve those issues, you're going to be attracting the wrong people. Now, I don't know if this couple are wrong for each other, but what I did some sleuthing and I saw in some of the thumbnails for the trailers is that here in the pods, they look like these two are connecting. But I think he ended up with another girl because I always see parts of like blonde hair. So I'm expecting a lot of drama between these two when they meet in Mexico or wherever they go. But anyhow, we don't know any of that yet, right? But I think when you feel this intense chemistry with someone, I think personally, and I'm judging it on my own personal experience, you should run as far away as possible without looking back.
Because that is not something healthy. That is unresolved trauma. That is you being a child inside of an adult body, looking at another child inside of an adult body, that his unresolved trauma will touch you in a way, will complete your unresolved trauma.
Yeah, so why don't you just learn those lessons on your own? Or you know what, maybe actually those toxic or wrong relationships are our lesson. Maybe we're supposed to go through them to learn those lessons. Like what Martha and Lewis learned, and that's why they ended up in a healthy relationship together, is because they've gone through those mistakes in past relationships. So you know what? Go into those bad relationships. Have at it, girl. And now on to the next myth, which is that one that you complete me. This one is so intoxicating, right? Because we all want someone to complete us.
Definite soulmates. You're just finding the one.
Wow. Everything's just falling into place right now.
As women and as men, we grow up thinking, oh my God, I want that love story. You know, where's my guy? I need to find him. And then when you meet him, you do feel like, oh my God, he completes me.
And therefore, when you break up, your entire world collapses. Because it's actually built on a fantasy. It wasn't built on anything real. And because the reality can never match the fantasy. Because fantasy is inherently something so magical. And also a lot of people, myself included, when we project so much into the fantasy, whether it's, you know, about a partner, or whether it's success in life, or whether it's fame or a lot of money, living there in the future gives that kind of like comfort about how unhappy you are in the present. So I get it, girl, but
It's phony.
and the third myth is that love has to hurt, that love has to be messy, that love has to bring a lot of pain and longing and despair, and yeah, so many. I mean, it's literally in every pop song that we hear. And every story that we're told, and all the anecdotes, it's crazy.
The path to love is not a straight line.
And yes, while pain is part not only of romantic relationship, it's a part of life, suffering is not necessary. And suffering is this self-created, mind-made set of dysfunctional behaviors and thoughts. But even though it's actually not necessary, but maybe it is ultimately in the bigger picture, it is necessary for our spiritual growth and awareness. Because only after you've suffered and when you've had enough suffering will you say, okay, I'm done. But sometimes you watch a lot of people, especially when you've overcome a certain kind of self-destructive behavior and you watch other people doing it, you're like, damn. You can see how you were behaving before and you realize maybe that is just a natural part of the growth. And maybe not everyone's going to grow out of it. But suffering actually, so I take everything that I said back. Maybe suffering is necessary sometimes because you need to go through it to realize what you're actually doing to yourself. And the fourth love myth, is that there is something fundamentally wrong with you that you need to change and adapt in order to please the other person and be good enough to be with somebody else. That there's something about you fundamentally that needs fixing.
My biggest insecurity, I got a bald ass head.
Trigger! She's bald. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I used to hate the fact that I'm bald, but now, I mean, it's not that I love it. I mean, I'd rather have hair, but like, I'm not ashamed of it anymore. But thanks to wigs, because now I just put on another wig. But the wig and the hair is obviously a very silly example, but taken to the extreme, this kind of like self-loathing or inability to accept yourself will take you down a path of constantly having to adapt yourself to fit the other person. I don't know if you recognize this behavior. I tend to do this sometimes when I'm on the dating apps. Like we all have a profile, right? We write in it our interests and blah, 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 what we like and all that stuff. And sometimes you come across, especially those dating apps where you need to match before you can chat. And you find someone's profile and you're like, I'm really into them. But you realize the interests are different. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I've done this. Like you go to your profile and kind of like tweak it so that your interests match. Embarrassing, girl. But you know, it's just like, there's that tendency that sometimes we have, like, oh my God, because we get taken over by our attraction or maybe lust or our loneliness and need to be with someone, that we're like, okay, maybe I'll just change myself a little bit so I can be with someone. Luckily, I don't give in to that so much. Like, I notice it and I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Because even if I do end up matching, because sometimes I do end up matching with somebody that my gut told me I was wrong for, I never end up answering, which probably makes me seem like a psycho. But I feel like this is just like one of the steps on I don't know, on my path, on my journey. And another example of how people change themselves, like about bigger things, about values and beliefs in life. Like sometimes you think you really want children, and then you meet someone and you realize they don't want children. So you kind of like push that to the back thinking, oh, maybe they'll change their mind. Like you should always be as upfront as possible. And what is very important to notice here is that when you scare people away with who you are, that's good.
I have friends that said, but Martha, I'm gonna scare this person away. Scare him away. If he leaves, then that's not the person for you.
And before you, I've chosen many relationships where I felt resistance. I felt like I didn't want to change, but the only way to make this person happy was if I changed so many different things.
Yeah.
And that was on me for deciding to adjust and change and adapt to make someone happy, as opposed to just being full authentic yourself.
So basically you have to continue to grow without the fear of losing the other person. Because if you're gonna lose someone because you are behaving according to your values and beliefs, then you weren't meant to be with that person in the first place. Even if they're hot, girl. Even if they are hot. Do you hear me, bitch? Now, on the flip side of that is the fifth myth. The fifth love myth, which is that nothing about you needs changing. That it's all the other person who needs to change. And what that ends up taking you down the path of controlling other people because you think you're perfect.
Someone who will treat me like the queen that I deserve to be treated like.
And people who think that way have this underlying need to control everything and everyone around them. They need to control everything in their surrounding. And that also comes from fear, because probably somewhere in your childhood there was complete chaos and loss of control, and now you're trying to have that. But if you want to control your living partner, get a dog, girl. Get you a pet. Not even a cat, because a cat will control you. Yes, she will. You know, true healing actually comes from when you start to notice your need to control other people. Check yourself when it comes up.
After I healed, it was never my intention to ever want to change anyone. Because if we are honest with each other and our pasts, in a way, Louis, I think we were trying to change our ex-partners in some ways, you know?
Basically, it all comes down to accepting yourself and realizing how hard it is for you to change before wanting to change somebody else. I mean, how many of us, have you ever tried to change a habit of yours? Something as simple as quitting smoking. Well, it's not simple, but all those things. And then if you go even deeper to personality, it is very difficult. And usually we don't change unless there's an actual crisis. So when you realize that about yourself, you maybe take it easy on other people. And the reason I'm able to realize those things with a little bit more ease is actually because I'm more fulfilled in my kind of creative, professional life. And this is what drag has done for me. And I talk a lot about this in my show. How even drag and being fulfilled creatively and artistically and becoming more financially independent has allowed me to kind of have more ease towards my mother and all those people in my personal life, that giving other people a break, basically.
I feel like I'm in a therapy session here.
And speaking of my show, the residency starts in November 8th. I'm linking below where you can come and see me. And see you next week, where we will be analyzing the first 4 episodes of season 5. Girl.